Hey guys, what's up? Shock here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I wanted to bring to you guys a deck profile of my GOAT format, GOAT controlled deck. For the modern format of 2021, this is kind of how I envision the deck right now, and this is part one of a three-part series where I'm going to go ahead and show you guys three decks that I think are pretty decent right now in today's format for GOAT control, modern GOAT control. So this is my flagship deck, of course, the GOAT control deck. This is the deck that I still think, if you're the best pilot, I think is the best deck, and this deck has the most amount of customization. We will have a couple more decks in this series. One is going to be just a pure Chaos Turbo list, which is probably one of the most popular decks nowadays, and probably the easiest to pilot, whereas this is probably the hardest deck to pilot. And then we finally are going to do a little bit of an unorthodox deck in a Chaos Control list with Shining Angel. So if you guys are excited for that, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and let me know if you guys are interested in more GOAT control videos. I am going to do, again, 3 videos going over all these GOAT control cards and the deck. So let's get straight into it. We're going to hop into this GOAT control list with, of course, the monsters. So first off, starting for the monsters, we're playing the 1 BLS. This is the main boss monster of pretty much every deck in the format at this point, but it's a very strong card, obviously. A lot of you know it from current format, but 3,000 attack, can attack twice, and can banish literally anything on the field, which is really good for banishing flip effect monsters and all that good stuff. Very powerful card, and a lot of decks kind of focus around it nowadays. The 2 Air Knight Parshath. So a lot of people really kind of got away from tribute monsters, and people really only play the Thunder Dragon at this point, but the Air Knight Parshath is really good because you're able to tribute over your Thousand Eyes Restrict after using Metamorphosis on a level 1 monster to get a bunch of cards to the graveyard, getting a lot of good trades by using Thousand Eyes Restrict to take one of your opponent's monsters, maybe a flip effect, or some other boss monster like a Chaos Sorcerer, and then Air Knight Parshath is able to attack directly for 1900 and getting you a +1 in your draw, and then your opponent has to threaten this card or get rid of it. What's really nice about this deck too, this deck ends up most of the time being Air Knight control, where you're able to just continually summon this card back from the graveyard with things like Call the Haunted or Premature Burial. So one of your main win conditions along with BLS in this deck. From there, we're running 2 flip effect monsters. We're running the 2 Magical Merchant and the 2 Magician of Faith. So Magical Merchant I list as the first flip effect monster in this deck because it gets you to all your resources, all your powerful spell cards, whereas Moth requires setup already. Now, for example, if you do open Pot of Greed and set Moth, that's a very powerful play. However, things like Nobleman of Crossout can stop that play outright. I do really like both of these monsters as well for this deck specifically because you're able to have them on the field, use Metamorphosis to turn them into the Dark Monster Thousand Eyes Restrict, and then from there you're able to, for example, tribute over them with the Air Knight Parshath, getting 2 lights and darks, or 1 light and dark in the graveyard, immediately making Blackluster Soldier Envoy of Beginning alive to play and push out a lot of damage. So very cool cards, and this deck is basically Sky Striker 2.0, or 1.0. Actually, it's like the first Sky Striker. So this card adding back your spells and this card getting to your spells is really, really good. And as you can tell, we've already talked quite a bit about Metamorphosis. That card will be coming up soon, but it's a very strong card. So the 1 Morphing Jar is really, really strong because it's, I mean, a lot of you guys probably know what this card does, but if you don't, you have both players discard as many cards as possible from their hands, and then they draw 5. So this card's literally draw 5. Really, really strong, especially in an older format. This card can really screw up a lot of decks, and it can be the strongest card in your deck or the worst card in your deck, depending on how you play and all that stuff. But the good players know how to play this card really well. If you're scared and you don't want to deal with the fact that this card's dumping a lot of chaos monsters into the graveyard, you could run something like a Dekoichi, or you could run just another flip effect monster or something random. So Morphing Jar is pretty good, but yeah, you definitely could sign that card out going against chaos if you really wanted to. Then we're playing 3 flip effect monsters with the 2 Tsukiyomi and the 1 Azura Priest. So not as many people play Scapegoats nowadays, but I do like Azura Priest for being able to get over a bunch of monsters on the field. as well as it being a light monster. And Tsukiyomi, obviously really strong, being able to flip your flip effect monsters back face down, and having other versatile stuff like flipping down your Thousand Eyes Restrict after it sucks up an opponent's monster to get another suck up effect, or to just keep face up on the field to restrict your opponent from changing their battle position or attacking, which is really nice to stop flip effects and stop you from getting OTK'd. These cards are also really good because we play Creature Swap, which we'll get to in a little bit as well. Play the one, Breaker the Magical Warrior. This card's obviously very strong. We're going to kind of get into the one-ofs of the GOAT format now. So the one DD Warrior Lady, basically spell and trap removal. This is monster removal. Another monster removal card in Tribe is very, very strong as well. One Sangan, it's the ultimate floater of this format, and then the one Sinister Serpent, which is the other ultimate floater. So the two of the best floaters basically in the format. Very strong cards, and that'll do the monsters. So a lot of you guys should be pretty familiar with that. I just wanted to give you a brief explanation of those cards. So then we're running your honorary 2 other monsters, which are your Scapegoats, and then your 3 Metamorphosis. So Metamorphosis is able to basically tribute any monster on the field and then summon an extra deck monster like a Thousand Eyes Restrict from your extra deck when you activate the cards. Very, very strong. You're able to use Thousand Eyes Restrict and do a lot of cool things. And then Scapegoat's really nice for defensive plays, using end phase Scapegoat, and then Metamorphosis is really strong as well, and it's usually just to defend your life points and whatnot. 2 Book of Moon, pretty versatile card, I would say. This card was limited to 1 for a really long time, but before that, this card was at 3. We only play 2 because it is technically a -1, but it's known as the best -1 to ever exist. Then we're playing 2 Noblemen of Crossout because this format's really dedicated to flip effects, and things like Chaos Turbo being so popular, they run upwards of 9 to 10, or 8 to like 11 flip effects, so Noblemen of Crossout's very, very strong. And you'll kind of see where we're going with this deck because the 2 Creature Swap also helps you out quite a bit against flip effect monsters, and it really works well with your spirit monsters in your deck as well. When you activate a Creature Swap, and you control a spirit monster, your opponent controls, for example, a face down monster, you can give them your spirit monster, you get it back in the end phase, and then you have their flip effect monster for that following turn, since you can't change its battle position the turn you take it. But Creature Swap's really a versatile card that takes tempo away from your opponent and punishes them. Then for the trio, we're playing the 1 Delinquent Duo, the 1 Graceful Charity, and the 1 Pot of Greed. So can't remember what this card does, to be honest with you. It's Japanese. I haven't. Delinquent Duo, though, discards 2 cards at the cost of 1,000 life points. Graceful Charity draws 3, discard 2, and I can't remember what that card does, but I hear it's pretty good. Then we're playing the 1 Premature Burial and the 1 Snatch Steal. These cards are insane. Premature Burial is very strong in this deck for being able to bring back your Parshath and stuff like that. Very, very powerful. Snatch Steal a lot of times is a game shot, so very good card as well. For Spell and Trap removal, 1 Heavy Storm, 1 MST, and 1 Dust Tornado. I think that this is fine right now. There's a lot of chain will back row right now, so you want to have back removal, but you're going to get punished most of the time for using it, so you want to try and save it for important back row. But sometimes, it's kind of a judgment call as to when you activate those cards if you're trying to go for pushes and whatnot. For the very powerful traps, the 1 Call of the Haunted, of course, this card's absolutely nuts. With Parshath, it just does so much, and yeah, it's very strong. Parshath and BLS, of course. And then you play 4 traps that remove monsters from the field. So the 1 Sakuretsu, which is basically just a worse Mirror Force, the Mirror Force, the Ring of Destruction, and the TT. And that pretty much does it for the main deck. These cards are all pretty self-explanatory. This isn't a rotted version of Ring of Destruction. So Ring of Destruction can be activated during either player's turn, and Ring of Destruction can also destroy a monster even if it would create a tie scenario. So do remember that card's very strong, and then TT is busted. And then let's go on to the extra deck very quickly. So nothing really much to say here, but you just go through your standard levels. So pretty much the most important one is the 3 Tur, which your opponent can't flip their monsters' battle positions, change their monsters' battle positions whatsoever. You target a card on a monster on the field and you equip it to it, it gains the attack. And if it were to be destroyed by battle, then it would lose that card, but that doesn't really matter. So pretty good. It also gains that monster's attack. There's a standard level 3. There's a standard level 4. This card is basically Imperial Order, which is really good for normal spells at least. This stops flip effects and I think trap cards. This is level 6 that I think stops trap cards if I remember correctly. I can't remember. And then this card is a level 8 that sometimes you use with your BLS if you're feeling really spicy. So yeah, like nothing crazy. Most of the time it's just Thousand Eyes Restrict, and then of course like whatever tokens you have. And then here's a side deck. So a lot of times people don't side for GOAT, but I do, or I have a side deck for my GOAT control deck at least, so we can kind of talk about it here. So the worst matchup for GOAT control is aggro. Even though aggro isn't super popular, you do have to kind of side for it because you have a really hard time in that matchup. And these cards are really, really good for that. Being able to basically just be, I mean, this card ends up being just cards you just use with premature burial and Call of the Haunted versus your Air Knights. You don't have time to tribute your Air Knights against aggro, so you have to play this. And this is really good for when they're just attacking you a bunch. You can just put their monsters back to their hand and put them in a really weird spot. So I really, really like those side deck options there. And then we're playing, for Chaos specifically, the 1 Exiled Force and the 2 Mind Control. So these cards all do the same thing essentially, except Exiled Force is a normal summon, but it removes the card, whereas Mind Control doesn't remove the flip effect monsters, but it does remove Chaos Sorcerer. So Exiled Force and Mind Control both deal with the 2 strongest parts of Chaos, which is flip effect monsters and Chaos Sorcerer. Exiled Force removes the threat in each scenario, but costs you your normal summon. And the Mind Control is able to take the Chaos Sorcerer, banish itself, and the Mind Control is able to also take the flip effect monster and flip it face up. Although not removing the monster, it does let you burn their flip effect, which is like the whole point. So these cards are both really, really good against Chaos. And then again for aggro, 1 more Scapegoat and 1 more Sakuretsu armor. Just rounding it up to a solid number 6 is what you really want to play against aggro. Really getting rid of those spirit monsters and other random cards like maybe Creature Swap. And then for OTK decks, this is like the main thing that you want to use. I know that a lot of people like Solemn Judgment, but this card basically does the same thing as Solemn Judgments versus OTK decks. And then the 3 Royal Decree for any burn decks if those evil people should show their face. Yeah, I mean, not really a whole lot you can do against burn decks. You just try and see your Royal Decree, and if you can't see it, then, well, I guess you beat me. So, yeah, then I'll actually do it, guys, for the GOAT control list. Remember, we are going to be doing 2 more videos that are going to be a Chaos Turbo deck and a Chaos control list with Shining Angel coming up very, very soon. So don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, all that BS. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this modern GOAT format list. So, all right, thanks. See ya.